We're going to sit down and just have a little Q&A session with our state legislators. I'm Annie Bench. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Saginaw, and I will turn it over to my other two hosts to introduce themselves, and then we'll get right into it with our legislators.
Hi, I am Cecilia Olvera. I am a resident of the City of Saginaw.
It's Kevin Hayes. I'm also a resident of the City of Saginaw, and I'm the Director of District and Constituent Services in Senator McDonald-Rivet's office.
Then go ahead, Senator Rivet.
Hi, I'm Kristen McDonald-Rivet. I'm the state senator for the 35th District, which includes the City of Saginaw, the City of Bay City, the City of Midland, and all of the townships that connect them.
All right. I'm Amos ONeill, state rep for the 94th District, which includes City of Saginaw, Saginaw Township, Carlton, Spalding Township, Bridgeport, and Buena Vista Townships.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Our first question is, why did you decide to become a public servant, and what inspired you to run for the specific position you hold right now? We'll start with Senator Rivet.
We're both trying to be very polite. Public service is a core value in my family from the time I was raised, and in raising my own children. I believe at my deep in my heart that paying back to your community and working on behalf of your friends and neighbors is one of the highest callings that you can have, and it's also an obligation of all of us. So it's not only the right thing to do, it's the patriotic thing to do. And if you look across my family, you'll find lots and lots of public servants. This position, in my very first term. I'm 8 months into to my service as state senator. It's the first time I've ever been elected to partisan office. It's been an interesting first half of the year. It was a pretty tough campaign battle to get here, but I really felt the communities coming together. I think it's really important across the region that we come together. We had a coalition of people that were interested in making things better, particularly for children and families. I spent my career doing that, and I felt like I could be a part of a movement, a part of something that really mattered, and really changed our communities for the better. And threw my hat in the ring, and here I find myself in the Senate office.
Wonderful, thank you. The same question to you, Amos.
President, I think you're on mute.
Thank you.
That I am. Thank you, Senator. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and great question. I started my career early in education. Saginaw Public Schools, I served as a family service coordinator, and I also served in a position as in early childhood education, the Birth to Five program. I was one of the male navigators, and I had to go back to school to learn some early childhood education activities. I really enjoyed those roles. And from there, I moved into nonprofits, director of operations at the First Ward Community Center. I love that role, serving the public. And so my career just really revolved around service. And I learned how to serve from my mom. My mom always found a way to have room and food for our relatives who were migrating from the South to the North during that time. And we had 7 in our family, and didn't have a lot of money, but we didn't know we were poor, but we were. But we always had food, and we always made a way for other folks to have a place to stay. So I saw that, and it really touched my heart. And so I just stuck with it. I just stayed with the service part. I've had many opportunities to do other things. I served in corrections as a federal oversight for compliance for a couple companies, the last one being in Grand Rapids, Cherry Health. And that was a great opportunity. And that's why I'm passionate about corrections now. But I always gravitated back to service. So in 2003, while at First Ward Community Center, I had an opportunity to be considered for city council, I had no interest. I was not seeking politics. I was very content at First Ward and United Way. I was campaign director for Saginaw County United Way for 7 to 8 years. I ran the campaign and did well. I learned the business community. I learned the service community for all those nonprofits. I enjoyed it. And so fast forward in 2003, Mayor Joyce Seals had a health issue on city council, so she had to she resigned. It was in October 2003, and so folks were kept asking, well, Amos ONeill, you should consider. So I finally buckled in and said, okay. There were about 6 or 7 of us who applied, and at that time, during that process, the city council will have to, select you. So I was selected, fortunately, in October of 2003, and in November of 2003, I had to run a campaign to keep that seat. And so I ran and I won, and then I won 4 times after that. And so from there, it was just a part of me, service. I feel very comfortable in the role because it's in my heart. I'm not doing it for the money. I never did it for the money. Jobs working in the community, you don't make a lot of money. You do it because you love doing it. I did it, and I still love it. So from city council to county board of commissioners, and then was fortunate enough to be elected at the state house. And so that's kind of how I got in. I learned it from my mom. I saw her giving, loving. She always gave what she had, and that's kind of that's sort of how I am now. I'll give you all. I'll give you my time. I'll give you my energy, and I'm all in. Because I love it. It's not like this is something I have to work myself up to do. It's just natural for me. So that's kind of my story.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is, what does a legislator do in both of your positions, and what does an average week look like while in session?
Do you want me to go?
We'll
Yes,
always start with, yes, Senator Ribbit. How about that?
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks. So the legislature at its core makes the laws for the state of Michigan. So it's our job to make laws and to appropriate money. So it's really that simple, but it's incredibly complicated. And so we consider legislative ideas. They start with introduction from a legislator. Legislator has an idea, or they've got a constituent group that comes to them and say, "Hey, this is a really good idea for a law." You introduce that bill, and it gets referred to committee. Then it goes from committee. If you vote out of committee, then you get enough votes there. Then you take it to what we call the full floor. That's everybody in the House or everybody in the Senate. And if we get enough votes, which is typically just a majority of the votes, then it heads over to the other chamber, same process again, and then it goes to the governor for her signature. So all of our work is focused around those things. The other things that happen inside our offices are really helping with constituent issues. So helping residents anytime they need assistance with the state of Michigan. I think we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I would say 8 months into this brand new job of mine, if there's no such thing as 2 same days being in the legislature, it's constantly shifting and changing. The Senate gets in, we start session at 10 o'clock. So typically before we go over to the Senate floor, there will be a couple of committee meetings. And then we go to session, and then we have more committee meetings. We also meet with groups that are visiting the Capitol. We meet with different organizations that are lobbying for specific positions, trying to think about, can we improve our voter laws? What can we do around providing healthcare? A lot of folks wanting to talk about education. And then after that is done, which is typically, we're done with that around 5 o'clock, head back to the district. And almost always there are a couple of events that were meetings that we attend in Saginaw. So from everything from, sometimes you see us at something super cool, like a Friday Night Lights, where we get to listen to great music and maybe dance a little bit. And other times we're in more serious meetings of stakeholders talking about some, problems with violence in the neighborhood. So we are always shifting and in different places at different times, and every meeting is a different topic. And it's really it's really fast paced. It's long hours. We work every day, including through the weekends. We don't generally get a day off. And the best part of it, frankly, for me, is when I get to be in groups of residents talking about community.
Yeah, really, it's hard to try to double up on that. She said it all. I mean, our days are just like she described. Just specifically for me, being the caucus chair for our party, my role is really like a facilitator of, and convening the meetings, communicate with the speaker's office every day because he'll communicate with my office to communicate to the caucus. And so, that's a very important role. And then just as she said, the committee meetings and the House floor meetings, and, it's like you're on a treadmill, if you will. You're constantly moving, and it's nonstop. Once we're there Tuesday through Thursday, our work day in district is Monday and Friday, at the Capitol Tuesday through Thursday, and those Tuesday through Thursdays are full. If you could look at our calendars, you would like, wow, how do you guys do it? But we manage it. It's a juggling aspect, but that's why it's great having great staff. That's really pivotal in how successful you can be, having good team around you, because you can't do everything that's required. And the apparatus of the state of Michigan is large, and that's where our staff come in, and the resources we have at our disposal is second to none. And so we're able to respond to our constituents in a way that's very responsive and timely, if you will. And so it's great. It's just great to serve in that capacity and, be selected to represent the people, because it's an awesome responsibility. And I don't think the senator would disagree that, even though it's grueling, time consuming, sacrificial, I can say we love what we do. So.
Thank you, Senator Representative. So our next question, could you tell us a little bit about what committees you serve on, maybe which committees you chair, vice chair, and a brief explanation of what those committees oversee?
Representative, why don't you start?
Okay, all right. Thank you, Senator. So my committees, I'm the vice chair of appropriations on the House side. I also chair corrections, the appropriations subcommittee on corrections. I am a member of the Labor Committee, DHSS Committee, the Government Committee, Capital Outlay Committee, and also Democratic Caucus Chair, and also the Executive Vice Chair of the MLBC, which is Michigan Legislators Black Caucus. And so, those all roles, just for example, corrections, we have to be responsible for, oversight of the corrections budget, which is $2 billion annually, the highest in the country, I might add. And, that's a big budget. And we're looking at ways, how can we be more proactive with that budget in terms of redirecting dollars on the front end? For example, if a person's on probation or parole, how can we provide services and support to those individuals to keep them out of prison? Because it costs at upward of $40,000 to $42,000 annually to house an inmate, not to add the cost of health care involved in those institutions. So it's a large number. Labor, generally, work with our labor partners, that one. DHSS, that's a large, one of the largest budgets in Lansing. And so all the services that our families receive from DHSS downtown, and a lot of the mental health service, behavioral health services, all of those follow that umbrella. General government, working with our cities and counties to make sure, there are laws and resources available to accommodate what their needs are. Capital outlay, that's where we work with our community college to look at their capital outlay plans in terms of improvements to their facilities. And we approve budgetary requests for those individuals. And then the other chairs, the caucus chair, just kind of facilitating our meetings and our discussions in our caucus. And also Michigan Legislators Black Caucus, that's a major arm of our what do you say, committees, if you will, and that deals with a lot of equity issues that that we see across the country and not only in Michigan. So those are my committees that I currently serve on.
I guess I'll go next. So I have 9 committees, 6 appropriations, and 3 policies. So when I say appropriations committees, those are the committees that that basically develop and pass the budgets. So I sit on full appropriations. I'm the chair of Joint Capital Outlay. So Representative talked about what that did. I'm the vice chair of the Department of Health and Human Services budget, the vice chair of the Department of Labor and the MEDC budget. I sit on the higher education budget, as well as the budget for EGLE, which is our environmental budget. And then from a policy perspective, I'm the vice chair of energy and the environment. I sit on the education committee, and I also sit on the economic development and community development committees. So essentially, my committees cover, the policy committees cover education, economic development, the things that really matter, policy that has to do with our utilities, how we're approaching the environment and climate change, what it looks like, how our schools are doing, policies and laws related to our schools, and then how we're doing economic development in our local communities. And then I sit on, like I said, 6 different budget committees. So it's busy. I'm also the assistant majority floor leader, which means we determine how legislation is handled as it moves through the process in the Senate.
Thank you both. That's very interesting, and that explains why if we looked at your calendars, we would not begin to understand how you guys get things done. And obviously you guys do have wonderful support staff, because Kevin is one of the perfect examples of a member of that good team. So we're lucky to have him serving in that capacity too. But our next question, we can start with Representative ONeill this time. What are some examples of the ways your office works with the city of Saginaw and the other local governing units within your district?
Yeah, great question. Actually, we were actually meeting with city officials yesterday. Was it yesterday?
It was yesterday.
Yeah, and so generally speaking, I think we have a quarterly calendar meeting established for the purpose of making sure we're communicating with our city officials and township officials. I know I meet with my township officials as well, just to kind of find out what are the issues that you're dealing with, so we can be more responsive to those requests when we're in Lansing. Right now, this is like grant season for us in Lansing. So for us, I know we are educating our base in terms of what's available. We were just on a couple of meetings earlier to talk about some of that. We were on a meeting yesterday talking with community constituents about an issue. And now that we've had some landmark, landmark budget distributions, the key that I found early is, our folks just don't know how to pull the money down. And so for both the senator and I, we're really working hard to first educate our base. How you access the money? No, I go back. Where is the money? And then how do you access the money? That's critical. So I know we both are working hard on that end in our respective spaces and also together. And so, but making sure we're in constant contact with our city officials, our townships that we represent, to make sure we're listening to some of their needs. And that way we can advocate for those when we're back in Lansing.
As to that, so I think that we figured out early on how important it was going to be for us to have continuous communication and partners, so that we can have a strong voice for the city of Saginaw in the Senate and a strong voice for the city of Saginaw in the House. So we try to compare notes, not just be in meetings together that are really critical for our city and our townships, but also to be able to talk to one another about who should take lead in which areas and the things that we are hearing that we maybe need to come back and take to the community. So it's we keep joking that we have spent so much time together this summer as the legislature has been on break. It's not unusual for us to be in 3 meetings in a single day together as we're approaching the city. But there are other ways that we really work to. So there's the formal meetings that we have when we meet with city leadership and when we meet with township leadership, but also we try to do things. So once or twice a month, I leave my home church and I attend services in different churches around the community to be able to talk to folks and worship alongside them and really hear what's going on in their lives. We are doing door to door. So knocking on the doors, not asking for votes, but saying, hey, this is how you reach us. What can we do for you? Sitting with folks on their front porches and talking to them about the issues that are affecting their everyday lives. And sometimes that's just a general worry about things like the state of the democracy or the price of bread. And other times it's very specific. We had a conversation, we were knocking on doors and had a conversation with a woman on the east side that was had been in a terrible car accident, and she had had to leave work, and she was living without any health insurance until her until her disability kicked in, and she was going to lose her house, right? And honestly, had we not knocked on the door and said, hey, this is who we are and what can we do, and we're here. We are public servants. We're here to serve you. We wouldn't have even known about it. I think we are in a place in time where people are very, very cynical about politics in general, and that bleeds over to cynicism about public servants and elected officials. And so, we're going to speak for each other a lot here, but the representative and I both feel really strongly that this is a place at its core about people, and the way that we start to dismantle that cynicism and the way that we start to make people believe again is by walking alongside of the folks that we serve, worshiping, walking, and meeting with them. And so, that I think is I love meeting with the mayor pro tem, but also love the spaces on the front porches where we sit and talk to residents.
Yeah. Can I elaborate on a little bit more on that topic, Madam?
Yes, please do.
Really, that's really the nuts and bolts of, a public servant, and we are public servants. A lot of times people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that involves listening, like the senator just described, and those stories are so profound in our communities if we just take the time to listen and be present. And so there's no off period for us. When people, say, oh, you go to Lansing, you have district days, we're 24/7. We're like on call 24/7. And literally our staff are the same way, because I know I communicate my staff on all types of times and days. I know they may not communicate back to me, but I put that in their inbox to say, I might be up at 2:00 in the morning, for example. Something will come to my mind, I'll say, okay, I'll ask a question. I know they'll get back with me in the morning. And so it's a 24-hour role. Our staffs are included. And so that's the commitment we make. When you're a public service, you're an open book. There's no time for like, okay, that you say, I'm off the clock. When we go to the grocery store, we're on the clock. When we go to the gas station, we're on the clock. When we're walking, in the neighborhoods, like you said, we're on the clock. We're on the clock. There's no off time, is what I'm saying. And so that's our commitment to our constituents. That's our commitment. We chose this role. And so with that, there's an ultimate sacrifice of your time. That's the only thing you never get back in life is time. And we committed ourselves to this. And our time is the most valuable commodity that we have. And we give it to our public.
Thank you, Representative ONeill. Oh, sorry. Did you want to continue, Senator?
Oh, okay.
No, that wasn't me.
Go right ahead, Cece, you're good.
Okay. So thank you both for your answer. And I know we've briefly touched upon this question and some of the answers you've had to the other questions, but what types of constituent issues can you help residents resolve?
So I'll start if that's okay. You know, I think there are a lot of people who don't understand the resources that are available. So, at any given week, we have about 400 people on our caseload where we're working through issues to help them. I'm sure the representative's office is the same, and people will call for all kinds of reasons. So, first of all, our office is always open if you want to express an opinion about legislation or public policy issues. That's for sure. That's, we get a lot of people who call about that. But from ways that we can help, anything that has to deal with the State Department, whether we're talking about housing issues, we take a lot of phone calls around unemployment, collecting unemployment insurance, getting public benefits. We talk with folks who are who have issues with health insurance. We talk to folks who have issues in court systems. So it's really when you're interfacing with government and you feel stuck, we often can help. We have folks in all of the state departments that we reach out to, and often it's not just State Department. So our office will call local governments. People don't always know whether or not they have an issue with a state, or a federal government, and sometimes all we do is help you figure it out. But we also try to connect people so that at the end of the day, you're getting what you need. Because when you're in a place where you need some help, you don't want a phone number to another office. You want someone just to help you fix it. And so that's what we try to do.
No, I'll ditto that. And our offices are similar. The volume is robust. And any given day, as the senator indicated, you can have an inquiry of upward of in the hundreds, in particular letters, and not to add the phone calls and the requests you get from folks all over. And a lot of times you get requests from other offices. That happens a lot, and we try to refer them respectfully back to those offices. But our roles as representatives for the state is, we represent the entire state, not just our districts. And I kind of stress that a lot when I'm talking to folks, even though we're focused on our district. But when we make decisions, we're making decisions for the entire state, and so that's very important to know. But as the senator said, DHSS, during the COVID period, we were getting a lot of calls on healthcare and access to health services. Unemployment was a big deal. Our office was bombarded during that time for unemployment. Folks not able to work. Well, they put their requests in, and they'll get mixed messages, and we have to kind of sort through that to hone down to actually where they need the services, where they need their information to go to. And by us making requests, a lot of times constituents will make a call on their own to a department. They may not get a response. And so when they call our office, we make an official inquiry. And a lot of times that really moves things along. And so, like the senator says, sometimes just kind of tell them where to go and what to do. It's a large part of that. But constituent services is one of the most important things that we do, because all you need is one disgruntled constituent to just kind of badmouth you. And it happens. I'm sure it'll happen to all of our offices. It has. But you have to try to even just be respectful and informative to that person. And at the end of the day, they'll respect you. They may not agree with you, but you just kind of tell them what you're able to do, what's appropriately able to happen, and you go from there. But that's really rated high. I think the House Hub really monitors our response, and there's some statistics, percentages of efficiency, if you will, lack of a better word, that they attach to our ability to respond and be responsive to our constituents. So, I know that's one of our main priorities is dealing with the public, making sure we're responsive, we return every phone call, we reply to every email, and make sure that we're addressing those questions and concerns. We probably should have had Kevin answer it. You know, he could have saved
It's his whole job.
breath. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys did a
Yeah.
pretty good job.
All right.
So as a constituent of both of yours, what is the best way for me to get in contact with you guys in your offices if I have one of these issues that we just talked about that I need help resolving?
Yeah. Well, basically, you know, if I may, Senator, just our information is public information. Emails are great. Phone calls are great. That's how we get to the staff, and the staff are the gatekeepers for us. So reaching out to our office through phone or email would be the first priority. You know, and it's different if you see us out in the community. Then obviously, you know, you would say, "Hey, I got an issue," you know. But then we will always direct you, "Hey, you got to reach out to my office," so we can have that documented, so we can follow up. Our volume is high, and a lot of times, just in passing, you may forget something, which we do. But having that contact directly with our office, our staff can sort of put a pin in it and make sure we are on top of that issue, whatever it may be.
So yes, absolutely. I think for our office, there are a lot of ways to reach. You can go to senatormcdonaldrivet.com, and that will get you to our office. You can call, you can email. We really try very hard that when you call the office, you get a person. But if you don't, leave a message and we'll get back with you. The only thing that you should not do is message me through Facebook.
Amen.
Please do not message me through Facebook. It is the most inconsistent form of communication. Don't DM my social. But there's lots of different ways. You can call or email, and you can get that through our. There's a switchboard, and there's also a piece that you can just Google. It will show all of our numbers, how to get a hold of us, what our email addresses are, or senatormcdonaldrivet.com.
And on that note, with DMing your messenger, you know, people do that, and a lot of times, you know, you see it, you say, okay, and it cycles through, and you forget it, and so you try to, you know, unless you respond
and I'm
to
old and tired, Representative. I don't always monitor I rarely monitor. I don't exactly know how to access direct messaging through a lot of my social, but
yeah,
just old and tired. Call my office.
Yeah.
Thank you. How does one submit a budget request or policy idea? I know you mentioned the specific ways to contact you, but is there anything additional?
Let me just start a little bit. Maybe I talk process, and Representative can maybe talk about timeline, because I know we're coming up close to time. There are a million ways to do it, and I really believe that it is not necessary to believe that you need to have the perfect PowerPoint, the most articulate paper, something where it's got to be overly formal. I think that it starts with a conversation. All good budget requests start with a conversation, and I'll just be really honest. Too few people in Saginaw are doing it. And so organizations that are doing this Herculean work, and there are dollars available at the state that they're not accessing. So from a budget request, I would say the city, of course, we meet with regularly. We talk about budget priorities. That's a more formalized process. But for residents to come to our office hours, to send us an email, call our offices. We receive budget requests in all kinds of different ways, and it doesn't even have to be specific. But I think that the more people that we have that are weighing in and where our priorities should be from a budget perspective, we know that housing is really, really important need in Saginaw, as an example, but where? And what kind of housing and what that should look like? Well, we need residents, the people who are living in the neighborhoods, to be weighing in on that kind of stuff. So you can do it in a lot of ways. Very large budget requests need to come through our offices, and you should just call our office, schedule some time, and come in and sit down. And we can do that in the district, or we can do that here in Lansing if you want to see the fancy offices with the flags. But it's just starting a conversation and not being afraid that you don't have everything you need before you start it.
Right. I would agree. And, I'm not sure, Senator, if as a result of just a long period of time where, maybe, a lot of issues that our constituents had, which is unheard of from previous, tenures of folks. I'm not sure, but that is an issue we're really working with to try to educate. That's why education is so important. And giving us documents that we can take and start to have those conversations around. Just good example of a meeting we just had the other day, yesterday, for housing. That's a big issue, and what's affordable for you may not be affordable for me. So for us to understand the folks that we really are working hard for is that middle family who may be paying $600-700 for rent right now. Well, you can probably get a mortgage for less than that. I know you can in some of our families. So we got to figure out a way to have our constituents, like you said, bubble up and say, hey, this is what we want. You don't have to be perfect. Give me something to work with. We got property, or we've designated an area for development, and for us to deal with MISTA and Leo and MDAR, all those agencies, they need something to work with, right? And then knowing where the buckets of money are for us to utilize for those projects. And so again, that's what we're doing now. But the budget process for this next year starts in October. We just came out of the budget process for this past year. But the sooner you have information relative to your budget, the better. I've got a lot of requests like in the 9th hour, and I was trying to be very polite and respectful to some folks that I have been working with like all year, in 2 years. And I'm saying, like they said, well, when you need it? I said, well, like yesterday, like
It's too late.
it's too late. It's too late. And so for example, I always say, so even though we have the money, we're not the only community asking for the money. So that means, the sooner you get your project in and dispersed to the power brokers, the better. Okay. And because at the end of the day, when we sit down and have these budget discussions to make a final decision, there's a triangle. There's that 3-legged stool. You got the budget office, which includes the governor's office. You have the House and the Senate appropriations team, and you have staff around them, but you have a 3-legged stool. And in those discussions, you have to have everybody agree upon this proposal. And then when it gets to the governor, she has to agree, or she can say, no, I'm not supporting it. So having a House, Senate, and then the budget officer understand how important this is to your district, the chances are you getting that project funded are greater. Okay. If I can explain that, that's really how it is. And so the sooner the better. We start our budget process in October for the next budget cycle. So, we would strongly suggest to start, even if something you had in the last budget cycle that didn't get through, bring that back to us, for us to consider for funding for the next budget. Now, we had a sort of surplus before. Now, we don't have that surplus going into the next budget. So we have to be really frugal and conservative in our distribution of these funds. So again, everything's not maybe a great idea, won't get funded. That's the reality of it right now.
That's exactly right. The only thing I want to add to that is that nothing gets through without 56 votes in the House.
That's right.
And 20 votes in the Senate. And so we are just one of those. So we don't make the decision. It's whether or not we have the ability to go forward and sort of advocate for it and fight for it. But we're the first step in a pretty long process for a budget allocation. It's not like applying for a grant where, you sit and talk with someone and that person gives you a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Right.
So we're fighting for every penny. We fight for every penny for Saginaw.
We do. And to that point, Senator, that's why voting is so important. Every vote counts. Every vote counts. Every vote counts. And so right now in the House, we're in a situation where we have 2 colleagues who are running for mayor. They made it through the primary. They came in second place, and so the potential for us to lose that majority are real. And so, and so I want people to understand, we ran across people on both sides, oh, my vote doesn't matter. And they're going to do what they're going to do anyway. Well, listen, everything that you deal with, those person that made those comments, everything they deal with is because of a legislative vote, right? That 56 or that 20. And so, we can't stress enough how important voting is to the future of your, viability and the future economic viability of our state and our country. And so if we need to talk about voting every day and even educate our younger group. I know there's some legislation that was coming down the pipe to try to expand it to 16-year-old early registration. So I know that probably come back up, but that's good because you want to, again, we talk about pipelines for everything. We need to maintain a pipeline for voting. And so education needs to start as early as possible to educate, our kids. My grandkids, when the situation, when I'll just be honest, straightforward, when President 45 was in and those things that were occurring, these young people were in tune to that. 14, 15-year-olds, like, granddad, they call me granddad, like, what's going on? Why is this happening? Why did he do that? So there's an awareness out there, y'all. There's an awareness out there, and we can't start too early educating our grandkids and our kids on, civil responsibility and how the political science works in our world that impacts them every day in their everyday life.
Thank you both. Our last and final question, just real quick, is number one, if you want to add anything that we haven't covered through our question and answers. But specifically, we had our meeting yesterday with the mayor and the city administration and the two of you. And I think it was Representative ONeill who maybe was the one who specifically said it, but there's frequently a misperception that when you're governing that you're focused on one thing, or that you don't look at the whole picture. It's more of a myopic view. And you both were explaining all of the different things that you guys have been advocating for and working for, and how each element of the things that you have brought back to the city of Saginaw and the people that you represent in your district actually are a whole cloth trying to address these things. We're not just focused on jobs. We're not just focused on healthcare. We're focused on everything, because the citizens you represent here in Saginaw have been, plagued with struggles long before economic collapse, long before COVID hit, and they've only been exacerbated by those. So I just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to kind of sing your own praises and make sure that you guys are given an opportunity to explain to everybody who watches this, hopefully, that you guys are not just thinking about one thing, you guys are thinking about the big picture for us.
So I'm going to take that opening, Annie, and say, for folks who are watching this, I think one of the most transformational things we have done this year was a very large expansion in the Working Families Tax Credit, which is the EITC, the Earned Income Tax Credit. Yep. Yes, it will be game-changing dollars for, honestly, most of our residents. So the only way to get that is to apply for the EITC when you do your taxes. So we are going to be going door to door. We're going to be going to the churches. We're going to be doing everything we can to make sure people know about that. But up to 20% every year of the people who are eligible don't apply because they don't know about that. And that can equal a return on your taxes, a check to you for between $3,000 and $3,500. Game-changing money right at the time where spring is coming. It's really important. So the EITC. Check to see if you're eligible for the EITC. But we've done a lot of work where we think holistically about what our families need. We know that we've become a nation of low-wage jobs. And in our region in particular, people just need more money in their pockets. And that has been a focus. My focus is really in the space of education, infrastructure, and economic development, right? So we need better schools. We need to support our schools. We need better paying jobs. And when I say infrastructure, I mean everything from the sort of brick and mortar, from our bridges and roads, right down to our mental health and healthcare systems, right? Our infrastructure is broken and needs to be repaired. So we try to think about it across the board on that. But the first thing and the most important thing I think we have done this year, in addition to dealing with gun violence, is those tax cuts that are the cut in the income tax, repeal of the retirement tax, and a quadrupling of the working families tax credit. So, now we just have to make sure people apply for it so they get the money.
That's it. That's right. Those are big, big lifts and historic. Historic. The only thing I'll add to that is access to healthcare. You know, that was one of the platforms when I left the county commissioner, because I had experience backfilling our local health departments to the tune of $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million annually, because of the status of the lack of the 50-50 fund state statute not being implemented. It had a lame duck, and so there were many factors in COVID. So that was one project I took personal, because I was on the board of the health department. I chaired the Health and Human Service Committee for the county, so I had access to a lot of information. So long story short, fast forward to now, we worked on this for a couple of years, and then advocated on DHSS. The governor put that as a top priority in her budget. Initially, we got $14 million from DHSS, and through the negotiations, we got bumped up to $25 million. That's a game changer, because our local health departments are ground floor level access, ground floor level. And you say ground floor level, Rep. ONeill, that means just the average citizen in our community access to health departments more so than anybody. So if they're not able to get just the basic ground floor level service, then what does that mean? With all the disparities that exist and were exacerbated through the COVID, then, you know, health is wealth. You can't do anything at all if you're not healthy. So that was a big deal. So that $25 million that's in the budget now will benefit our local health departments here in Saginaw and all the health departments across the state of Michigan. So that was a big deal, and I'm really proud of that aspect, you know, because when you think about, you know, single items, like you said, Mayor Pro Tem, you know, and we can go on for another half hour and talk about specific things that we worked on, but we don't have time. But know that we're looking comprehensively when we advocate for our district. As the senator said, the things that she worked on, those are like dollars in the pockets of folks that we see every day at the grocery store, at the gas station, in the neighborhoods. That's big. That's big. And then having access to healthcare and access to good quality healthcare is also big. You know, so those go hand in hand, and on top of the other things that we work so hard for our constituents.
Well, we're approaching almost a whole hour we've been here, and I appreciate your time. We know how busy you guys are. I want to thank you so much for being here with us today. And in particular, thank you so much for the work that you guys are doing in Lansing, advocating on our behalf. The EITC is something that helps my family. There are many things that you guys have worked on and successfully passed that have a positive direct impact on the people I represent and many of the people I know personally. So those are real, tangible, positive things that you guys are doing that are affecting people's lives. And we're just very lucky to have you guys working so well together as a team. And it seems to really, be making a big difference for us right now. I don't think I've seen this much action at the state level since I've been in office, for sure.
Okay. So, yes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Great job. Good job.
And keep up the good work, and thank you again.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.